man tātou te whare. Nā rere, te kāne mihi anō kia koutou, ka kahata ki te rāne, ki te whakamārama, ki te mōhio, tēnei tūāhuatanga mai te tūranga o te tangata whenua. I raro i te tiriti o Waitangi me te whakapūtanga. Nā rere, kāne te mihi ka koutou. My name is Hori Parata. I'm part of the Tangata Whenua Reference Group. I'm the chairman of the Tangata Whenua Reference Group, and I'm the representative. Myself and another person, Waitangi Wood, are the two representatives on the leadership team. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit today about how the joint agency thing came together in terms of Tangata Whenua. Because as you know, it includes all of the regional councils, Bay of Plenty, Waikato, Auckland and North. So nā reira, tāna te mihi ka koutou. When we got together, we decided that we actually needed something in Māori that actually represents our feelings for this kaupapa. And because ko te Kauri he whakaruru hau mo te iwi katoa. And even in my mihi, any of you that understand Māori, you sort of heard that I said that the Kauri tree is the tino herenga. Everything is underneath that Kauri tree, for example. And so that's what we're saying here, ko te Kauri, e whakaruru hau mo te iwi katoa. And when we talk about iwi, you would have heard that in my mihi too, is that we don't only talk about humans. We talk about all of the children of Papa, Tuanuku and Ranginu. And the human, according to some of our kaumātuas, is the youngest child. Okay? So we look at a Kauri tree and address the Kauri tree as an elder relative. It's not just a thing or something that you can co-modify and put dollar signs on. So that the land is sustained, so that the Kauri stands proud. You know, if we were really proud of the Kauri tree, you know, the amount of Kauri that went to San Francisco when they had that big billionaire thing happening over there recently. We might have gone over there and won some of their hearts to give us a hand with this kaupapa, because they got a lot of Kauri from us. See, I'm talking San Francisco and other places too. But moving on.
Yeah, and get for you. Okay.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk a bit about here today. I'm just going to talk about Tangata Whenua, the engagement model, the key program themes, and the way forward. And that's, I only got about half a dozen slides, I think. Now, you would have mentioned here, me mentioning in my mihi to the Ngāti Whātua. About Tangata Whenua. See? So, Tangata Whenua, Māori Tangata Whenua, they're out home. You know, they've been so frustrated with the rules and that Western paradigm makes, they don't hardly believe in them anymore. See? So they don't come here. It's only stupid fellows like me come here. And that is to ensure that Māori are part of the conversation as well. So it's not for us to go to town halls and there to see them. We actually go and find our relations where we know that they are. And they're dealing with all sorts of stuff. But they're dealing with all sorts of stuff. One of those, for example, is the settlements of our treaty grievances. See? So it's more than just about a Kauri tree that is unwell. You know, we as tangata whenua are unwell as well. So, and that is because of the way the government and status quo treats with us about the Treaty of Waitangi. That is why tangata whenua view is not getting some kind of equity in forums like this with science. Right? Okay, so we're saying that the main people that we try to reach are actually the landowners themselves. Iwi runangas don't own any land, okay? It's hapu and whānau who own the land. And any land that they don't have was stolen off them by New Zealand government. So that's the structure that we've got there. About how do we bring tangata whenua together into this kaupapa. And any of you say, it's just, I'm not explaining anything clear enough to just ask a question. Okay. But as you can see, I'm trying to get through my 6 slides as quick as I can. Did you? Sure. So that's what you can see there now. That's all of the tangata whenua here. And then into the tangata whenua reference group, which is what we are. And of course our tangata whenua reference group are made up of Māori resource managers throughout the whole Kauri region, so that we all talk to each other. One example about that concern that I spoke about with the Treaty of Waitangi is that since 1840, right up until 1987, tangata whenua had no legal way of influencing the way government and local government and people treat with our environment. And so that's where we are there, and then of course you get the joint response group, which is ourselves, the tangata whenua reference group, and the Regional Council Department of Conservation. When the issue of PTA first came up, it was decided to hold a series of hui throughout the Kauri region to talk about it. Like we're saying there, it was an opportunity to discuss some of the technical aspects of the engagement, the establishment of tangata whenua rōpū, the tangata whenua joint agency response partner. Now, just in terms of that, one of the things here, for example, and even though Jack's been around these things for a long time, I was just once again, Jack probably didn't even see there that the appropriate way to start this week today, certainly on our behalf, was to let tangata whenua welcome us here, say a karakia for us, and make us see in Māori. Manuhiri, which is what we are. When you arrive to a place, you actually walking 2 inches off the ground. See? That's why Māori goes through that ritual of welcome. See? Because in a pre-European time, there were 2 types of visitor. One want to come and fight you, and the other one want to come and have a big laugh with you. Right? So that's just what that ritual process is all about, is to find out, are you here for friendly purposes, or are you here for a fight? Right? And so that's what Pōhiri was for. So that was to allow those Matua to welcome us here. They are the home people here, Ngāti Pātua. And it was proper for me or somebody amongst us to jump out and support that. Support what the tangata whenua did. We know that we're free now. We're down on the ground now. We can now touch things. Okay? And that's what Māori is all about. Now, you'll see that as we go through this, I'll show where we actually held a hui in Waipoua Forest with Te Roro. And that's when we spoke about how for non-Māori, you only come into our world for a moment. Hey? See? You only come into our world for a moment. If you come to the marae, you're actually in a Māori world. And as soon as you leave the marae, you're back into your own world again. Whereas for ourselves as Māori, we don't only have to maintain the cultural and spiritual integrity of being Māori, but we'll also have to observe these other nuances as well, in terms of relationships. So that's really what it's all about. We say that we weren't rock apes here waiting for you guys to come along and lead us towards sorting this disease of Kauri trees out. No. It's that we might have some ideas that can support that as well. Some of the key things that came out of it was a communication strategy that was timely and effective, an effective partnership. And that's why I mentioned the Treaty of Waitangi there before. Because if you listen to what the government is saying about us, they're saying that when our ancestors signed the treaty in 1840, that we gave our mana and our authority over our land to a stranger on the other side of the world. You know, for the fiercest warrior in the Pacific to do something like that, that's ridiculous. Right? Mātauranga Māori is what I've been talking about. Mātauranga Māori. When we came here, we were all about coconut trees and pandana. See? We weren't Māoris when we came here. We were Polynesian. We became Māori by our knowing the land. Every insect, plant, tree, bird, fish was named by us. And we talked about what those things do at certain times of the year. Okay? So this is just some of the Māori perspective stuff. While we say that there is a place for Western science, we say on its own, all it's going to take us to is to the end of the world. Building capability and capacity of whānau on the ground. That's the work that I've been involved with the relationship manager Ian Mitchell, because we know that a lot of our people don't come to these sorts of forums, public forums. See? So Ian and I will go and look for them. They might be out the bush, they might be wherever they are. But you've got to get there so that we can help them to understand that this issue is real. It's not just some Pākehā thing that'll go away one day. And of course, understanding tangata whenua perspective. Tangata whenua perspective is really important to understand that as well, because it's not one fits all. If you take, for example, Maramataka is the way Māoris read the monthly calendar. See? And Maramataka is a geographical thing. If I live over here on the east coast, the Maramataka that I'm going to work with is the one that actually belongs here on the west, on the east coast, not over on the west. Or even a bay. You get a bay where the sun hits there in the morning. It doesn't hit here. So there's all of those things that changes the effect of the environment at certain times of the year. Okay? Effective, current, and relative communication. And I think that is really important. And that's what I said to them at the hui that we had in Waipoua, that for those Pākehās that were in the group then, come to the marae. Come to the marae where we can meet each other properly, and a lot of them got really turned on by it too. It was a little bit different. At least you get this little bit here, because that was respect. That is respect to the tangata whenua, by allowing them to welcome us here today, say a karakia for us, and allow us to sit down and enjoy the rest of the day. Like it all says here, it all just says it all. And of course, I guess that's what we've been trying to do over the last, since the response team came together. And like I was saying there before, on the one hand, you've got some of us, well, all of us really, at Māori, we're dealing with the Waitangi tribunal claims that the process is absolutely unfair. And it's kind of like things that I say where the thief is making the rules about how we engage. And so there's stuff like that. So some of you may not like my language, but that's me. Some people also expect me to talk like that. That the thief is making the rules about how we engage with each other. It's a little bit different when we can come together like this and agree to disagree about how we treat with each other, while we try to reintroduce respect the respect that I spoke about before, back into the way we think and do things. Now, the full member of the joint response team. You see, part of the settlements is also this animal, and government certainly doesn't want to tell us what it is, and that is co-governance. Eh? When Māori negotiators say, well, what is that? They say, well, you just tell us. You tell us what it is. Now, how unfair is that? So, I'm talking about this thing called co-government. Now, about 15 years ago, when co-management was a thing, that came up to a guy called Fickret Burks. And Fickret Burks said, hey Māori, you are in a really bad situation, really. So the best thing that the situation you're in at the moment is not too good. But he said, let's apply a co-management model. Right? And we thought that was great. Even though he put the writer there that it is still the best, worst relationship that we could be having with our treaty partner. Yeah? Didn't work at all. You just had DOC and Regional Council and all those fellas muck around with it, and it didn't really take us anywhere as Māori Resource Managers. And now we have this thing called co-government. This co-governance, this committee that we have here would be about the closest thing. I'm on other national committees as well. This MPI one is probably the closest one that we have to some form of co-governance. Because as tangata whenua, we do have the right to influence some of the budget. Eh? But that is still not the co-governance that we think that we are really talking about, surely. Eh? Because what happens in there is that all of the budget drops over the Pākehā side, the white side. See? The issue is that we have a Kauri Dieback disease, we've got a $100 budget to do something about it. Instead of all of that $100 sitting over there on the white side, it might drop equally both ways so that we can sit down together and plan to work this thing called agree to disagree properly. See? Otherwise, the white side controls because they no, we're not going to let the budget go unless we like it. See? And you don't even know why you like it, but you might. Okay, so these are. So I'm talking about the tangata whenua part of this thing, not about being multinationals. And so that's what I'm saying in there, is that this is probably the closest to some form of co-governance would be how this response, joint response works, okay? These are some of the things that I've been just talking about with that for Māori. Those are the things that we have to observe as Māori people. When I look at that tree, I don't see just a tree, I see my relative. Right? Another thing in there, say from Mātauranga Māori, is that some of our tohungas, our kaumātuas, would talk about a story about when Tāne was making Kauri trees, he also made whales. Right? So talking about that relationship between whales and Kauri tree. And they do behave similar in lots of ways, in terms of the whale and ambergris and Kauri trees with gum, for example, or the bark flaking off like whale skin. So, that's what we're saying. We're saying that the whale was a four-legged animal that was made alongside Kauri tree. Okay? But no scientific any around that. And I was telling some of these guys this morning, here in the Māori paradigm, it's always good to have a little mystery somewhere too. Don't go and expose the whole thing. Hey? Otherwise, if we saw it all, wouldn't we just go home? Oh, Māori. Then that's the Māori worldview. So really all I'm just talking about, I'm just helping you is to get your own Māori lens you know, so that we can sort of get a little bit of an idea of where Māori might be coming from when we're talking to each other. And we might find a potential solution. Jack?
Sure.
Kaitiakitanga. That's what it is to us, it's Kaitiakitanga. I'm writing about Kaitiakitanga. I'm doing my doctorate thesis at the moment, and I'm writing it on Kaitiakitanga. See? Kaitiakitanga is about compassion and concern, not only for people, but everything. Kaitiakitanga. And what I talk about in there was that when my ancestors arrived into the southern part of Southeast Asia, amongst the Papuans and the Melanesians, they brought with them raised gardens, and they were looking after animals, see? Plants and animals, see? Because it was a thing that you had to do. Kaitiakitanga is a thing that you've got to do every moment of your life. See? It's that you live it, Kaitiakitanga. Because it's in your genes now. It's learning how to be aware of what time of the year is this. Good time now to start planting some of your garden. See? All of those sorts of things. And it's not only about planting a kumara and then eating it. It's about storing the ones that you're going to keep over the winter. It's also about looking after seed. So that's why in Māori they say, te kākano, ruia mai I rangi Aotea. The seed came from rangi Aotea. So you imagine a people who lived for 5,000 years on the ocean, looking after seeds. Fantastic. So that's why I'm saying my origin for Kaitiakitanga comes from way back then. Two-way capacity building, and we try to do that within the group, and active in changing behaviour. Some people would like to change my behaviour sometimes, but I think that if the gate's got a squeak in it, let it squeak. Okay. Is that it finished? Oh. Yeah. So, you know, any of you said anything that you're reading up there, if you want to ask me a question about it, just ask. In partnership with Tangata Whenua. Okay. Had a breakfast this morning, and I spoke about how lots of times science gets pushed out in the front, because mostly people are dummies, hey, and they really want to know. And they say, well, I don't know, but my mate over here is a scientist. I just want to say something. I know some of the scientist colleagues that I've been around for years now, they hate it when I say this. But I say to them that the most repugnant thing that I ever heard in all my life about the environment in Papatūānuku comes from science's granddad, Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon said nature must be hounded in her wanderings and be put into constraint, and it's for the scientist to torture her secrets. Hey, how painful is that? How much oil hose in that?
Sorry, can you just say that quote again? It was that Francis Bacon.
Yeah, and it is. Very soon I'm going to finish with the Maori bit soon, and you can be Pākehās again. Right. Like I said there before, all of those of us that are on the Tangata Whenua reference group are Māori resource manager. Frustrating, it's very frustrating. See? But what we try to do is to work together. In fact, what we say about ourselves as Māori resource managers in the north, from here north, we say we operate like a union. See? Because it's too hard to interpret these things all by yourself while the government is changing it and shifting the goalposts all the time. And that's who we have within this thing. We're having to deal with all sorts of weird stuff, you know, GE. There are people who want to put GE up here, mining. And of course then you've got DOC and regional council. They have to provide access to Joe Blow Public. And so that's some of the tangata whenua stuff. What we would say in the tangata whenua would say is that if this part of the forest is sick, close it. See? Close it. And those people who think they've got a little bit of ways of helping us to talk about it and sort it out. Right now we're doing that. We're trying to talk about it and sort it out, but at the same time, we're increasing the numbers of people that are going up into the bush. Hey? Ngāti Wai, that's my iwi, from Whangarei, up from South Barrow Islands right down the Great Barrier, my iwi, Ngāti Wai. And we're affected from one end of Ngāti Wai to the other. So, way forward. I think the way forward is in relationships. Eh? It is in the relationships that we have with each other. And I think that that is really important. We, as Māori, don't try to impose our values and our views on you. We just say that there are some, and we'll put them on the table alongside your ones, so that we can work it out together, how that's going to all pan out. Okay? I'm glad that's my last slide. I don't know if anybody got any questions. But they'll just understand that there is a tangata whenua reference group that, as part of the joint agency response. And I wanted to say kia ora to Eric. I saw Eric somewhere. Oh, kia ora, Eric. From Ministry for Primary Industries. E ngā mihi hoki ka koe te whananga e hua, Kaihoro. Nā rira tō hara mai ki te awhi ki te tautoko tō tātu whakaaturanga. Nā rira kāne te mihi ka. Well, kia ora tātu, everybody. That's my presentation.